For the first time in Daytona 500 history, a Toyota will start on pole going into Sunday's race, and two championship drivers have already guaranteed their spot into this year's Daytona 500. Let's analyze everything that happened tonight in Daytona 500 qualifying. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about Daytona 500 qualifying. And for the first time in the history of the Great American Race, a Toyota will lead the field to green on Sunday. That is the first time that will ever happen from that manufacturer since joining the sport in 1998. So Chase Briscoe on pole, Joe Gibbs Toyota, number 19, will lead the field to green in the Daytona 500 on Sunday. Alongside of him in second place will be Austin Cindric, leading him next to him, coming to the green flag in Daytona as well. So certainly that is exciting. We'll talk a little bit about that. The open cars, there are 9 drivers trying to make the Great American Race, the Daytona 500, that are not in going into today. Jimmie Johnson, Martin Truex Jr. are now guaranteed in. We'll look at the path for tomorrow on how we could fill those remaining 2 spots left to get in. Once again, there are now 7 cars still not guaranteed in the 500 with only 2 spots open. We'll break down how that works. And Hendrick Motorsports, after dominating the Daytona 500 qualifying runs, winning the polls, they did not show up today when it came to single car lap time. So we'll break all that down. A lot to talk about. Let's start out by talking about Toyota. The first time ever that Toyota has won the pole for the Daytona 500. The 19 car of Chase Briscoe was able to get it done, win the pole tonight. Him and James Small. This is a big step for James Small. With Martin Truex Jr. leaving that 19 team of Joe Gibbs Toyota with James Small a year ago, it was very well noted that James Smalls knew he had to step it up, right? You know, Martin Truex Jr. had a great career with Cole Purn, won championships, won a lot of races, and when he switched over to a new crew chief, James Small, when Cole Purn retired, James Small and Truex did not quite put up those numbers. Now, Cole Purn's probably one of the most talented crew chiefs in the history of auto racing, so I don't think that's a bad thing for James Small, but certainly James Small feels like there's a bit of a chip on his shoulder if you listen to the comments that he made a year ago, and he wants to ensure that he can win with the 19 car without Martin Truex Jr. and with a younger driver with less experience and less wins, right? No championship for Chase Briscoe, only 2 career wins going into this season. Certainly, that is not as impressive of a resume as Truex had. So this is a good step in the right direction. You have speed in the race car. That's a great thing. That's a big thing. And once again, I've talked about this a lot in the history of the Daytona 500 qualifying, is that when you have a new driver-crew chief combination, winning the pole, getting a trophy, being able to be happy, celebrate something is great for the culture of that team and can help excel that team to achieve greater things in the future. Now, this does not mean that he's going to be the fastest car on Sunday in the Daytona 500. We've seen in previous years the pole sitter typically doesn't do well on Sunday in the race. Now, we saw last year where Joey Logano was on pole. He did very well and was clearly the dominant car of the race last year in the Daytona 500. So you never really know at this point in NASCAR racing what it will look like for the 19 team on Sunday. They have to execute and make sure they can get the results when it matters, and that's stage points. That's tomorrow in the duels, which have points as well, and that's in the Daytona 500. Austin Cindric, another one of those Penske Fords, continue to run well. Finishing up front when it comes to Daytona qualifying, he will start second for the first time ever. He will start on the front row of the Daytona 500 as long as there's no need to go to a backup car or anything of that nature. Both of those drivers would start 1-2 on Sunday. Now, the rest of the field will be set tomorrow night in Daytona duels, right? So the first duel would set one line, the second duel will set the other line. And one thing interesting, if we look at the results from qualifying tonight, we see a few names up there that are recognizable, but no Hendrick Motorsports drivers except for Kyle Larson, who was actually in 10th. And this is in contrast to what we've seen over the last, 15 years, right? We had them I believe they've won 12 out of the last 13 poles. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the pole one year in a Hendrick Motorsports engine. Hendrick Motorsports has clearly now changed the name of the game. We talked about it for almost over a decade, about how Hendrick Motorsports is really fast in Daytona 500 qualifying, but they have struggled to win the Daytona 500. They went 2013, 2014, they won it, and they didn't win it again until last year when they didn't get the pole in 2024. So that's certainly interesting as well. Hendrick Motorsports no longer has that desire to win the pole and get and get this first starting position using single lap runs. That's no longer the desire. You can tell there's been a change in whatever the operations are. There's been a change in the goal. Now the goal is to win the Daytona 500. They put a lot of effort in last year. They put a lot of effort in this year, I'm sure, in planning ways to win the Great American Race. And I think they're going to be a real threat come Sunday, because last year they were the most coordinated team in this race. This year, I expect a similar plan, if not better plan, than we saw a year ago. We'll see if it works out. Just wanted to mention that. Once again, only one of those Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolets in the top 10 on single car runs today, and that was 10th, or tonight, and that was 10th. Certainly interesting. Let's talk about the Daytona 500 Open Cars. This is the big deal of the weekend. Who is going to make the Daytona 500? Here's the list of all 9 Open Cars, right? You see some familiar names, potentially. Jimmie Johnson, 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, has qualified his way in on lap times tonight. He will make the 65th running of the Great American Race without any issues. Same thing applies to Martin Truex Jr. He is guaranteed in the Tricon Garage 56 car. He is guaranteed in the Daytona 500. So a lot of relief lifted off their shoulders, but that's not it. Qualifying is important for a few other reasons tonight, because tomorrow in the dual races, there's a few situations where a driver could get in or not get in, and we need to break that down. So let's just put it out as blatantly as we can. If either one of these drivers, Jimmie Johnson or Martin Truex Jr. in green, so they're both in the Daytona 500 guaranteed, but they're still considered open cars tomorrow in the duel. If they win, if they're the highest finishing open car tomorrow, either one of them, and they'll be in separate duels, if Jimmie Johnson or Martin Truex Jr. is the highest finishing opening car, that would then go back to qualifying. If either one of them finishes the highest in their duels, that would go back to qualifying, and that would guarantee Justin Allgaier in the number 40 JRM Junior Motorsports race car, the Chris Stapleton car, the whiskey car that everyone's been sort of watching. It's got a cool paint scheme. That car would be locked into the Daytona 500 if either one of those two cars is the top finishing open car in their duel. Now, if both of those drivers, Jimmie Johnson and Martin Truex Jr., both are the top finishing open cars in both of their duels, duel 1 and 2, then you would go back to qualifying again, and that would put Corey LaJoie in the Daytona 500. Now, let's say neither one of those scenarios happens. Martin Truex Jr. and Jimmie Johnson play it a little safe. Don't become don't finish the highest out of those open cars. It would then be down to whoever is the highest finishing open car, right? So whoever that could be. In the first duel, we have Helio Castroneves racing, Chandler Smith racing, J.J. Yeley racing for the New York racing team, Martin Truex Jr., once again, that would be one of those drivers that's already guaranteed in, and Justin Allgaier. That would be the first duel. In duel number 2, you have Anthony Alfredo, B.J. McLeod racing for his own team, trying to make the Daytona 500, and Jimmie Johnson, once again, that driver's already guaranteed in the 500, and Corey LaJoie trying to make the Great American Race. So once again, if Jimmie Johnson, Martin Truex Jr. are not the highest finishing open car, whoever is the highest finishing open car in those duels would advance into the Daytona 500. So that's certainly interesting, a little more complicated than I would like for it to be, but I did want to mention that that's very important going into tomorrow night, which, by the way, tomorrow night, the weather is starting to look a lot better than it was early in the week. Things are looking great for Thursday night, tomorrow night, to run the duels at Daytona. Should be exciting. Of course, I'll do an episode of Dirty Air immediately following that. The weather for Sunday not looking fantastic right now. Looks like there's a chance for some major thunderstorms to be rolling through the area during the day. Now, the scheduled green flag is set for 3:11, but the nighttime at Daytona Sunday night looks clear. Sunday evening, Sunday night. So worst case scenario, we hope we get no rain, which is ideal. But if we do get some rain showers to go through the day and evening, we could potentially run this race under the lights at Daytona. So that's it. All I wanted to talk about following Daytona qualifying. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back tomorrow night to break down the duels at Daytona, and of course about Kyle Busch not making the final round in qualifying. Let's get rowdy.